Thank you, thank you. It's always great to hear all these voices networking, because that's what the chamber is all about, is networking. So hopefully you've made some new friends today. Welcome to the 10th annual Mayor's State of the City speech. And Bob and I started this 10 years ago, right, Bob?
10 years.
10 years we just decided, and it's grown and grown and grown. And the sad situation this year is this is the last of Bob's speeches. Hooray. Because, no, he says hooray. However, we say, we are really sorry about this, but we're looking forward to the future. Also, Happy New Year. I don't know about all of you, but I can hardly believe this is 2020 already. My gosh. These are things, even at Y2K, you didn't even think that you'd be around to see 2020, but we're all here. So anyway, thank you for coming. I hope that your soup was as good as they say it was going to be. So yes, it was good, okay. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Mayor Robert Crowell and his last State of the City address.
Well, good morning and good afternoon. I don't know where we are in the time here today. This is the State of the City for 2020, and as Ronnie says, this is, I think, my 10th State of the City. And I think Ronnie in the Chamber of Commerce. Let me go up here like this, so if you can all hear me. Let's see. How about now? Any better? All right. Yeah. Let me thank Ronnie and the Chamber of Commerce for once again providing a forum for the State of the City address. Let me also thank the Chamber for all that it does for our community, from ribbon cuttings to picking up trash. They do it all. This is my last State of the City address, as Ronnie mentioned. Between the school board and the mayor's office, I will have served 23 years in public service. It has been and continues to be an honor without parallel to serve this great community, the community I grew up in. I took office on January 5th, 2009, just at the time the Great Recession was starting to kick into high gear. Financially, the recession bottomed out for the city in 2012. It bottomed out for many wage earners in our community earlier than that. We went from an unemployment rate of 7% in 2009 to nearly 14% at the end of 2010. In other words, the number of unemployed wage earners doubled in the space of 2 years. We were losing people and businesses at record rates. By comparison, our unemployment rate for last year was 3.4%, or some 900 wage earners looking for work, compared to the nearly 3,500 people out of work in our community at the end of 2010. On the city government side, our workforce declined from 634 employees in 2007 to 559 in 2012, or a reduction of 12%, which was obtained mostly through position freezes implemented by the city and employee attrition, which mitigated the large-scale layoffs. Today, we are operating with 597 employees, or a 6% reduction from our highest employee count. I don't have to tell anybody in this room, it was an extremely difficult time for our community. The downtown area started to look bleak with many closures. Some told me they saw tumbleweeds rolling down Carson Street. Yeah, really. And I know they were running around everywhere else in this community too. Shouldn't say that. But our industrial base at the airport declined significantly. Our median home prices declined, with the average turnover rate on sales taking somewhere north of 7 months. Economic activity in our community was either slowing down or coming to a standstill. At the same time, the city's long-deferred maintenance issues were coming to a head. Our water supply did not meet either state or federal safe drinking water standards. Our sewer plant was in daily danger of catastrophic failure. Our animal shelter was in shambles. Our roads were falling into disrepair. Our general fund ending balance dropped to $4.9 million in 2012, just enough to sustain the city's needs for 1 month. Our tools to deal with these critical infrastructure problems and issues were almost non-existent. I should also mention that it was during this period of time, namely September 6, 2011, that our community suffered the mass shooting of 3 guardsmen and 1 civilian by a crazed gunman at our IHOP restaurant. An event that brought national media to our city and shook our community to its core. But we have a resilient base of community members, including our city employees, and many of you in this room, perhaps all of you, who came together to keep our bow headed into the incoming waves so we could navigate the troubled waters that we were experiencing. Throughout this period, we were able to maintain a stable bond rating, such that today's Standard & Poor's rates our community AA- with a positive outlook for an upward change in the next 3 years. And compared to what we had in 2010 or 29, as of last year, we can boast an ending fund balance of 21.09%. Not bad. Although we financed many improvements through debt, our general fund debt load through this period actually declined from some $43 million in 2009 to $31 million this past year, or a 28.6% decline. Our highest annual sales tax receipts prior to the Great Recession were $26,808,000, experienced in 2006. During the recession, we lost 35% of our largest revenue source, with combined sales tax revenues coming in at $17 million in 2010. Combined sales taxes this past year came in at $32 million, or an 18% increase from our pre-recession high, and a 6% increase over the prior year. Early on in the recession, we increased the property tax rate to $33.66 per hundred, an increase over the prior rate of 3.19. The rate today stands at 3.57. So how did we weather through the Great Recession, and where are we today? On a city level, we tasked our managers to come up with $10 million in cuts, so we had a plan to make adjustments as necessary. They came up with 145 suggestions, and it turned out we used every one of those cuts in the first budget cycle and cut our budget by that amount. Remarkably, and I still don't know how we did this without undermining essential services for those in need. Our local service organizations and our faith-based community stepped up to provide food and shelter to those suffering. Frankly, I don't know what we would have done without their assistance. I will never forget the meeting when the board was considering these cuts. We had a room full of employees. at the hearing. I remember thinking, this is going to be an interesting and perhaps difficult meeting. To my surprise, the first speaker, a sheriff's deputy, came to the table and said, "We are here to help." And ladies and gentlemen, help they did. I suspect that attitude on behalf of the sheriff and his troops have had much to do with our community crime rate today being the lowest it's been in the last 25 years. A big pat on the back to Sheriff Furlong and his deputies. Is Kenny around? Yeah. And while we're talking about pats on the back, would you stand up, Mr. Stokes? The Carson City School District just received a $770,000 grant for 3 years from Tesla to help build a sustainable community in our schools. How about that, huh? And we took steps to share infrastructure costs where we could with our surrounding neighbors. Instead of fighting each other for development dollars, we implemented cross-jurisdictional sharing mechanisms for the delivery of health-related services. We started meeting with our neighbors to ensure that we were all on the same page and no longer competing with each other for developers. We agreed that we would compete on quality of life and would forego handing out money to developers to bring business to our respective communities. And yes, when other jurisdictions were hunkering down, our community took the calculated risk to invest in our aging infrastructure and do what we could to revitalize our urban core. We did so at prices much lower than available in today's market. In 2010, we joined with Douglas County, the town of Minden and Indian Hills to finance and build a water pipeline from Minden to Carson City in order to bring clean water to our community to blend with our own water to meet safe drinking water standards. Such a pipeline had been under consideration between our communities for years, but we could never reach an agreement with everyone. I'm proud to say that I think we've crossed that bridge, hopefully for good. While the pipeline cost approximately $32 million in bond funds, it saved us from expending even greater amount of money, $40 million, to build a new uranium and arsenic water treatment plant. The pipeline passed Indian Hills, and that community was able to do the same as we did. We are now in the final phase of completing that project with a 24-inch pipeline from the east side of our community to the west side, allowing us to move clean water throughout all of Carson City and also provide for better resource management. In 2016, we bonded north of $30 million to repair and upgrade our sewer facilities and alleviate the daily threat of catastrophic failure. This was no easy task, as we had to ensure that we had adequate sewer facilities to handle wastewater during construction. We're in the final phase of that project, which we anticipate completing next month. Phase 1 of that project was completed early, under budget, and won awards from the American Public Works Association, from the American Society of Civil Engineers. For that work, stand up, Mr. Schultz. For that work, our Public Works Director, Darren Schultz, was one of finalists to receive a Cashman Good Government Award from the Nevada Taxpayers Association. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you those don't come easy. While still recovering from the effects of the recession and a need to stimulate economic development, in April of 2016, we took the calculated risk to raise our sales tax by 1/8% so we could bond against the proceeds and leverage up of $18 million of infrastructure dollars to revitalize our urban core area, as well as the entrances to our city to complement the 2017 opening of the long-awaited bypass. I have in my notes here a fun sidebar that we've been talking about that bypass for a long time. There's a news article in the Carson Appeal in the 1960s where my father, we used to practice law down on Carson Street here. He argued that the Board of Supervisors, that if you built a bypass, it would kill downtown. So I often say a little prayer and I think to my father, how about taking a look downtown now? We recently completed plan changes to both Curry and Carson Streets, and shortly we'll be starting the complete street project for South Carson Street from the Ormsby House to Appian Way. This project will link our revitalized downtown with the South Commercial Core District in one complete street that will serve as a welcoming southern gateway to our community. The South Carson Street project will run nearly $20 million, financed through a $7.5 million Tiger grant from the federal government, $5.1 million from the state, infrastructure funds, sewer and water funds, and redevelopment funds. We are in the planning stages of addressing the Williams Street corridor with the assistance of a federal Green Capitals grant. Additional projects will address North Carson Street from Winnie to I-580 and Winnie to Williams Street. Excuse me. The federal Tiger grant is the largest ever received by our community. In fact, I don't think, you know this room I know, I don't think we've ever received such a grant. Hats off to our transportation folks for putting together the application that won the day in DC. Speaking of the Tiger grant, let me take a moment to share some fun things on the personal side. During my first trip to DC in 2017 to work the grant, my wife and I were invited to bowl in the White House bowling alley, the Truman Lanes. Yeah, they're really there. I always knew there was a bowling alley there, but to actually bowl on it was one of those bucket list items. I think I won, scoring a 93, which is all right. While bowling, I got to meet the new White House head of intergovernmental relations and many of his counterparts from a number of federal agencies. The next year, 2018, I was personally invited to a meeting at the White House, which I readily accepted. A couple of days before leaving for DC, I just happened to be having coffee with our Attorney General. I mentioned to him that I was heading to DC to support our Tiger grant. He offered his help. And when I got to DC, I had a personal discussion with one of the Transportation Secretary's senior advisors to talk about the grant.
And if that wasn't good enough, while I was waiting to go into the meeting with the president in the East Wing, a young man from the White House staff found me and asked if there was anything he could do for me. And of course, being an old lobbyist, I took the opportunity to talk about our grant in no uncertain terms. And when the Secretary of Transportation came to Carson City to deliver the grant, we closed the road in front of the Capitol by placing a large piece of construction equipment on either end of the block. During the ceremonies, the Secretary remarked that no one had ever closed the road for her. To which I responded, "Madam Secretary, we know how to say thank you out here." Privately, her staff complimented us and related to our city manager that we, quote, had our act together and that they would like to do more things with our community. Our transportation division has also received community help. Through the efforts of our community citizens, we took advantage of Domino's Paving for Pizza program, a program designed to fund pothole repairs. The Rotary Club of Carson City stepped up to fund bus shelters at 5 highly used bus stops to keep up with the growing needs of our Jack bus system, where ridership has been on a rather dramatic upswing. More recently, we have secured funds to rehabilitate Kings Canyon and the trailhead through a partnership with our open space folks, together with a federal access land, they call it a flap grant from the federal government. It always sounds like a stupid name, flap grant. But it represents $3.7 million. And we got the same kind of flap grant out there on the Vista Lane, I think, out there on the river area. As planned, we also used the funds from the 1/8% infrastructure sales tax to help fund the construction of our new $4 million no-kill animal shelter, and an effort spearheaded by Cassie, as well as build our new athletic center or back to take the strain off the community center. These were two things that had been on the drawing board for years. Both projects were completed in 2016. Last year, we also used infrastructure and redevelopment funds to fix up the Bob Boldrick Theater sound system and seating area. We're in the process of tuning up the theater lobby through the help of the Chamber of Commerce, the Hawkins Foundation, our own redevelopment authority, and private donors. During all this time, we have continued to acquire open space with the help of local groups such as Muscle Powered. We expanded our trail system to make our community more attractive to those who wish to enjoy the outdoors. We now have 11 square miles of managed open space around our community, laced with hiking and biking trails. Hats off to our Parks and Recreation Department, our Parks Commission, and our open space folks, and a big hats off to our community for passing the Quality of Life Initiative in 1996. In conjunction with the Culture and Tourism Authority, we are now coming into the 5th year of a 5-year contract with Epic Rides, one of the nation's premier mountain bike races. It is my hope that we can extend that contract. Also this past year, we entered into a new 15-year solid waste and recycle franchise agreement. We are already seeing the benefits with the diversion of yard waste from the landfill to full circle compost, and an increase in our community recycling participation, which I'm proud to say has more than doubled. On the energy and environmental front, we are on the savings phase of a $4 million energy savings performance contract that saw the retrofit of many of our buildings. This project was wholly funded by a Nevada Department of Energy grant and will reduce our energy consumption annually by over 2 million kilowatt hours and 65,000 therms, resulting in a reduction of greenhouse gases equivalent to 188 typical homes, or removing 376 passenger cars from the road, and an annual energy savings of approximately $180,000. You may read more about our community sustainability and projects on the city website at carson.org/sustainability. That was an idea started by one of our local community citizens. In the area of affordable housing, this past year saw the disposal of public land near the Bud Highway Public Works Campus to a nonprofit organization to develop more affordable housing options in this time of rising rents and home prices. A little over 2 years ago, our community saw the opening of Richards Crossing, and I know Garth is here somewhere, Garth Richards. That is a 39-room living facility designed to provide living space for those transitioning from homelessness, with 9 rooms set aside for veterans. This project was made possible through the collaboration of FISH, the Nevada Rural Housing Authority, and the Richards family. Today, it is full. When I first became mayor, I could count the number of new homes or developments in any one year on one hand, maybe even one finger. Today, our Community Development Division reports a total construction valuation for last year in the amount of $146 million. Our previous high was in 2018, when we recorded $102 million in construction valuation. It is difficult to keep up with that workload and still get any sleep, but our folks do. Many have asked me if we have enough water to sustain all the development we see occurring these days. The short answer is yes. We recently performed a water use analysis using the current master plan land use designations and a build-out population of approximately 80,000 residents. That is estimated to occur between 2055 and 2085. The results of that study indicate that the annual water demand at build-out will reach approximately 16,000 acre-feet, or 6,000 acre-feet more than it's currently used. The good news is that the city has usable water rights of 18,648 annual acre-feet to meet the projected demand for water. For the coming year, the Planning Division and Planning Commission will start a 2-year process of updating our city zoning code. Before leaving planning, a word about our code enforcement officers, Bill Kobarger and Jason Johnston. I don't know if they're here, probably not. These folks are the tip of the spear when it comes to enforcement activities. Not only do they take the brunt of any criticism, but they see a side of Carson City that most of us do not. For our community, please remember that these officers have a heart and are just as sad as you and I would be when they have to move folks from what can only be considered third world premises. Nobody likes someone to tell them what to do, but these folks are just doing their job. Do your best to be understanding. During this time also, we were able to commence operations with the V&T Railroad. Thanks in no small part, I think, to Stan Jones, who's the chairman of that agency. Stan, thank you. Yeah. And he says it's going to be built out completely next year. In all seriousness, the Polar Express, if you haven't taken it, get in early when it comes around because it's full. And perhaps my personal favorite, this past year, Carson City became the first bee-friendly city in Nevada with its very own bee hotel. Bee Hotel, a project of the Chamber Leadership Class of 2019. And yes, during this period of time, legal marijuana also came to our community through a statewide ballot initiative. As we proceeded to deal with this issue, we always remembered those citizens, law enforcement, and healthcare professionals who had legitimate concerns. We amended our zoning ordinances to provide for no more than 2 dispensaries, despite some pressure from the Department of Taxation to add more. While money is certainly not the driver behind this issue, in my opinion, or in our community, this past year, people have asked, well, what kind of money are you getting from licensing fees? I will tell you this last year, licensing fees from those 2 dispensaries reached $950,000, which goes to our general fund. On the arts and culture scene, and with a pat on the back to our Cultural Commission and the City Arts Coordinator, Mark Salinas, take a look at the Mind of Da Vinci exhibit outside the Community Center. An exhibit that to me reflects the importance of lifelong learning. And that's not all. Among other things, we recently stood up an art exhibit by our local artists at the Reno Tahoe Airport, and we will soon be part of a rotating art exhibit at the Governor's Mansion. A special thank you to Eleanor and David Bugley. They're here today. Where they go sitting? Stand up, you guys. You know, if it has to do with music, you're going to see Eleanor and David there, let me tell you. Well, thanks to both of them and the Carson City Symphony for their help in getting a $10,000 grant from the National Endowment of the Arts, one of only three given throughout Nevada. And a hat tip to my neighbor Cindy Brenneman for winning the first ever Mayor's Art Award. And another very special pat on the back to the Brewery Arts Center for bringing us the 11-amp music series during the summer evenings. This widely attended event will hopefully become a fixture for Carson City. Last year, we opened a new park at Schultz Ranch, the first new park since 2008. Ross Gold Park was upgraded to provide a universally accessible playground. A coming sport, this past year also saw the opening of the Carson Ridge Disc Golf Park, with an 18-hole championship course and a 9-hole family and beginner course. More than 5,000 hours of volunteer and staff hours were dedicated to this project. This April, we are scheduled to open the Carson City Rifle and Pistol Range, which was closed as a result of significant safety concerns. The new range is designed to comply with NRA guidelines and secure the safety of all of our citizens. More than $800,000 has been invested in this project. A hearty and sincere hats off to all those who helped make this a reality. Our library has a new director, Todd Colgrove. I don't know if Todd's here, who is continuing the library's strategic plan for excellence in library services. This past year, we had the honor of making the top 100 list of top performing cities in America, top performing cities in the United States from the Milken Foundation. Not easy to get. Our Senior Center Meals on Wheels anticipates serving over 100,000 meals this coming year. It's a lot of meals. It's a lot of meals. I could say a lot about what the Senior Center does, but these quotes from 2 male recipients say it all. Quote, "Some days my Meals on Wheels driver is my only human interaction. A heartfelt thanks to all the wonderful people involved with this wonderful program." Another quote, "Meals on Wheels have saved my life. God be with all of you. Thank you." Ladies and gentlemen, friends, fellow Carsonites, those quotes say a whole lot about who we are in this community. And one of the reasons you will always hear me say we live in the greatest city in Nevada and indeed in the nation. Let me briefly mention some of the things I see on the horizon. With the opening of Tesla, blockchain, and others in or near the Reno Tahoe Industrial Center, I can envision a new community coming out of the ground near Silver Springs. This will add development pressures to our area. Affordable housing will continue to be a critical issue in the development of our community. Until the nation and states can agree on a method of funding roads, road maintenance and repair will continue to be an issue. Homelessness will remain an issue. Our churches do a great job providing sleeping quarters during the night, but that can't last forever. We need to find a way to address this problem on a long-term basis that will require both state help and the cooperation of our surrounding communities. For better or for worse, climate change is here. For example, our snow runoff period is changing in such a manner that it is getting out of sync with the traditional growing season. Along with the efforts of our school district, we should continue on the path of reducing our carbon footprint to help address these changes. The experts suggest that another recession could happen this next year or soon thereafter. Probably you've all heard that. And as much as we think about that, I think we can pretty well guarantee that a recession will indeed happen at some point in time. And my sense is that our community is well positioned to weather through at least a mild recession, but we must remain fiscally frugal to ensure that we have sufficient financial reserves. To those ends, our community sustainability efforts and asset management plan should continue with a degree of alacrity. Through my term as mayor, I've been guided by the vision of one sustainable community based on mutual respect. A community that not only provides an ideal quality of life for all of us, but reflects our status as Nevada's capital and the future of Nevada. A community with excellent education and healthcare resources. A wonderful judicial system, which we have here. I know we've got our DA here. A family-friendly community prepared for the inevitable changes that will occur during the 21st century, which are occurring with a rapidity it's hard to keep up with them. I would like to think we have made strides toward that vision. Many folks ask me what I see as a legacy. While I don't think in those terms, let me address what I believe to be the definition of success by quoting Ralph Waldo Emerson in his poem, what is success? Excuse me. It reads, to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you lived. This is to have succeeded. Excuse me. Let me end by just saying thank you again for the honor and opportunity to serve as your mayor. May our community be always blessed with fair winds and following seas. Thank you. Sorry.
Bob's been a wonderful mayor. Thank you, Bob. Mayor Bob, we have so enjoyed you being our mayor for 11, years so far. You've got one more to go, so we're expecting a lot out of you this year. So any loose ends must be tied up. Okay. Thank you so much. I would like to have the mayor come back up now that he's had a moment to breathe for a second. And I would like Supervisor Lori Bagwell to come up and Supervisor John Barrett. They each have a microphone. We do have some time. You went through your speech very well. You said you stayed on time. So if you have any questions at all, please, you can direct them up here for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So anybody have any questions? And speak loud, because we only have 3 microphones in here. Anybody questions? There's got to be a question. It's got to be a loose end. Nothing controversial. Any word on the Orange House?
You can answer that, Lori.
Oh, thanks.
You answer that one.
That would be the proverbial loose end. The forever.
I'll have it open next week.
Yeah, there you go.
Can we quote you?
Yeah.
Might as well.
So are there no questions at all? If not, we have something else that we'd like to do.
What's that?
All right. So I guess everybody is happy in this room. So 2020 is going off very well thus far, thank you. But without further ado, I would like to introduce you to an amazing metal artist who lives just over the border in Washoe. Too bad for him, but he's close enough to Carson. And a number of years ago, Bob, we presented you with the eagle. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Yes, the eagle that you see on North Carson on the freeway. Well, he has created something else special for you. So Robbie, would you come up and present this to the mayor, please, as a thank you on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce.
I haven't seen you for a while. How you doing?
Mayor, it's a pleasure.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
A token of our appreciation.
What is this?
Carson, it's Carson Proud.
You want to stand up here?
Oh, very good. All right.
Thank you.
All right. There you are.
As you all know, in 2015, that became our slogan, is Carson Proud. And
That's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful? So you can, for the next year, have that in your office.
It will.
And then take it home. And Robert created this especially for you, so.
That's perfect. Thank you.
You're
It couldn't be
welcome.
more appropriate, let me tell you.
Yes,
Carson Proud.
and you have made us Carson proud, so thank you very much. So Without further ado, we will be here for a few minutes to chat with the mayor. And do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, but just thank you. You know, I can't tell you how much. We live in a beautiful community because of people like you in this room. We have wonderful people, and you know, people ask me, you know, what's the greatest attribute of Carson City? There's no doubt in my mind it's the people. I mean, you know, as I mentioned, I think in one of my little statements about, you know, 5 questions from the Carson Now, you know, what advice you give to people coming in. You know, politicians, yeah, we are leaders and we make decisions. But at the end of the day, it's the people that make your community. It's the people. It's not us up here. And I'm proud to say that we have a community of dedicated people to make sure that we have a good sense of place, a good sense of inclusion, and a good sense to just, you know, raise a family, come in and retire, and just make things look good. Although, you know, we have some cleaning up to do, but you know, a lot of communities aren't as small as we are. A lot of capitals aren't. Well, most of them probably. Most of them. But the benefit of that is, you know, we've got somewhere between 55 and 57,000 people now, and that's going to, you know, slowly go up. But the nice thing about that is we're a small enough community, and we have an urban environment here where we have all the state government here. We've got excellent schools. We have excellent health care here. And, you know, one person, I can see one right there from Cassie, who, you know, you can start a ball rolling in this community. You can get things done because we're small enough to make it happen. And you know, not a whole lot of, you don't get that in Reno. You may get some of that in Douglas County, but you sure don't get it in Reno. Because here, with 55, you know, with the amount of people we have and the geographic limitations we have, we can really build a place where it has a sound sense of place, a sound place where we can be proud to raise our families, we can be proud to retire, we can be proud to work, we can be proud to go to work every day. Let's keep it that way. I can't thank all of you in this room and our community enough. Just remember, at the end of the day, it's you that make a community. It's you that make a community. And you should all pat yourself on the back for making a community that, in my view, is unparalleled in its appeal, in its sense of place, in its mutual respect for people, where we actually talk to folks in the line, you know, coming out of the grocery store, the drugstore, or whatever. We actually have conversations with folks. That's what makes a community, where we feel good, where we include people, where we make people, you know, feel like they're worthwhile, and that nobody's left out, nobody's left behind. That's you folks in this room. That's the community folks we have outside this room in Carson City. You know, growing up here, I've seen a lot of different things happen. But where I am now in the last 11 years, you can't beat what we've got here. You can't beat it. So, you know, let's keep it up. Let's be proud of where we are. I know we all are here. But from the bottom of my heart, and I know that John and Lori feel the same way, thank you for being the citizens that you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. This concludes our afternoon, and he is available for a hug if you so desire.